6 o'clock on a Monday morning in Knoxville, Tennessee, November 21st, 2016. A school day. Jill Walker does what she does every morning. She walks down the hallway of her family's single-story home in the Sturchy Hills neighborhood, knocks gently on her daughter's door, and steps inside. Emma's room is quiet. That's not unusual. 16-year-olds aren't exactly morning people, so Jill says her name. Nothing. She bumps her leg. Nothing. And then she looks at her daughter's face. And she knows. She calls 911. "I just tried to wake my daughter for school," she tells the operator, her voice barely holding together. She's 16. When deputies from the Knox County Sheriff's Office arrived, the scene looked at first like a tragedy of a different kind. A teenager lying still. No signs of a struggle. The initial assumption, the heartbreaking gut punch assumption, was suicide. But then a deputy and the lead forensic technician on the case noticed something on the bedroom wall. A hole, small, about the size of a ballpoint pen. She knew exactly what it was. "At that point," she later said, "I knew that it probably was not a suicide." They found a second hole on another wall. And then, outside in the yard, they found 2 shell casings. Someone had stood outside Emma Walker's bedroom window in the dark, in the middle of the night, and fired 2 bullets through the wall. One lodged in her pillow. The other struck her behind her left ear. Emma Walker never woke up. She was already gone. She was 16 years old. She was born on March 20th, 2000, to Jill and Mark Walker. Jill was an elementary school teacher. Mark was, by all accounts, a devoted dad. Emma grew up in a close, warm family. She also had a younger brother. Her mother said she always wanted a baby girl, and she always knew she'd name her Emma. From the beginning, this was a wanted, loved child. When Emma started her freshman year at Central High School in the fall of 2014, she joined the cheerleading squad, and she took it seriously. Not just going through the motions, but genuinely throwing herself into it. Lauren Hutton, a senior on the squad who became one of Emma's close friends, later described her as someone who really cared. Someone who showed up. Emma was an honor student. She was a member of the National Beta Club, HOSA, the Health Occupation Students of America, and Young Life. She was the kind of kid who filled her schedule, not because she had to, but because she genuinely wanted to be part of things. She wanted to be a neonatal nurse someday. She wanted to take care of newborns, the tiniest, most vulnerable people in the world. That tells you something about who she was. Her friends described her as kind, compassionate, someone with a lot of people who cared about her, and she cared right back. But in the fall of 2014, the same season Emma joined the cheerleading squad, the same season she was finding her footing as a Central High School freshman, she met a boy. His name was Riley Gaul. William Riley Gaul went by his middle name. Everyone called him Riley. He was 2 years older than Emma, a junior when she was a freshman. He grew up with his mother and grandparents, and by high school he was a standout wide receiver on the Central High School football team. Top student, football player, charming enough. On the surface, Riley and Emma made sense. She was a cheerleader. He was on the football team. Central High School was a school where Friday night football was basically a religion. The lights, the crowd, the whole community wrapped up in it. They met in that world, and they started dating. In the beginning, it probably felt exciting. An older boy paying attention to you, being part of the thing everyone talked about. We don't know exactly what Emma felt in those early weeks and months, but we do know that the relationship became significant. They were together. They were a couple. And then things started to change. It didn't happen overnight. These things rarely do. But friends and family began to notice that Riley Gaul had a side to him that didn't match the football player image. He was controlling, possessive. He wanted to know where Emma was, who she was with, what she was doing. He talked to her in ways that made people around them uncomfortable. Emma's parents saw it. Jill and Mark Walker saw the signs that something was off. They tried to talk to their daughter about it. They tried to explain what a healthy relationship looks like versus what this looked like. At some point, they even forbade Riley from coming to the house. They took Emma's phone at one point, trying to create some distance. But here's the thing about being a teenager in a relationship like that, especially when you're kind and empathetic and trained to believe the best in people. It's not always as simple as just leaving, especially when the person keeps pulling you back. Emma and Riley broke up and got back together and broke up again. It was on and off, and each time Emma tried to pull away, Riley found a way to draw her back in. Her friends watched it happen. Her parents watched it happen, and they were worried. Genuinely, deeply worried. But in the fall of 2016, something shifted. Riley Gaul graduated from Central High School and started his freshman year at Maryville College, a small school about 15 miles from Knoxville. He was playing wide receiver on the college football team. Emma was still at Central, starting her junior year, and Emma Walker decided she was done. In October 2016, she told her friend Keegan Lyle that she was done for good. Not a temporary break, not another cooling off period. Done. Her mother later described the change in Emma after that decision. She said Emma seemed lighter, like a weight had lifted. She was spending more time with her family again, hanging out with her friends, laughing. She was back. Jill Walker said she and Mark were relieved. They were excited for their daughter. They didn't know what was coming. Riley Gaul did not take the breakup well. That's an understatement. What happened in the weeks between Emma's final breakup with Riley and the night she was killed is a story about what obsession looks like when it loses its grip on reality. It escalated, fast. Around that same time, just weeks before Emma's death, Riley Gaul attempted suicide on the Maryville College campus. His friend and teammate Max Siegel found out and helped get him to the hospital. Gaul returned to campus a few days later, reportedly in counseling. This matters because it tells us something about where Riley's head was. He was in crisis. He was spiraling. And instead of getting the help he needed, he was directing all of that energy, all of that pain and desperation at Emma. He borrowed his friend Max Siegel's phone repeatedly. He used it to call Emma. On the night she was killed, phone records would show that Siegel's phone was used to call Emma's number 52 times in just 26 minutes. Emma didn't answer. But before we get to that night, we need to talk about the Friday before. November 18, 2016. 3 days before Emma died. Emma went to a party at a friend's house. She was having a normal teenage Friday. And then, around 11:30 that night, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The message told her to go to her car, with her keys, alone. It said that someone she loved was being held, and if she didn't comply, they would be hurt. It was terrifying, and Emma knew, she suspected, that it was Riley. She didn't go alone. She gathered a group of her friends and they walked outside together. And that's when they found Riley Gaul lying face down in a ditch, acting as though he'd been beaten and left there by kidnappers. He claimed he couldn't remember anything. He said he'd been hit in the head. His friends, Isaac Ewers, Alex McCarty, Noah Walton, were nearby. They'd received the call from Riley too. They showed up. Emma Walker looked at the boy lying in that ditch. The boy who had controlled her, manipulated her, who she had finally walked away from, and she did not believe a single word of it. She turned around and walked away. She knew him. She knew what this was. The next day, Saturday, November 19th, Emma was home alone when someone came to her door. A figure dressed entirely in black. Head to toe, sunglasses, a hood pulled up. The figure rang her doorbell over and over again. Emma was scared. She texted her friends, "I'm home alone, and somebody in all black walked down my street and came to my door and rang the doorbell over and over again." She told them she thought something bad was going to happen. She said she was scared. She didn't know it, but she was right to be scared. Prosecutors would later argue that the man in black who terrorized her was Riley Gaul, scoping out the house, finding angles, calculating. Although Riley's defense attorney would contest this at trial, the evidence pointed heavily in that direction. There is something particularly chilling about the detail of those 2 days. The kidnapping hoax. The figure in black. These were not random acts of desperation. They were a pattern. Riley Gaul was someone who would construct elaborate scenarios, fake his own kidnapping, stand in a ditch in the dark, to get Emma's attention. When none of it worked, something in him broke the rest of the way. He also, somewhere around this time, stole a gun from his grandfather's house. A 9mm Glock. His grandfather would later testify that he had noticed the gun was missing days before Emma died. There was also concern. His grandfather knew that Riley had been talking about suicide. Riley Gaul had a stolen gun, a broken obsession, and a trajectory. And then Sunday night came. Sunday, November 20th, 2016. By all accounts, Sunday evening was quiet for the Walker family. Emma texted her friend Keegan Lyle about a homework assignment. Normal. A 16-year-old on a Sunday night, thinking about school the next morning. She went to bed a little after midnight. At Maryville College, Riley Gaul was using Max Siegel's phone to try to reach her. 52 calls, 26 minutes, no answer. Somewhere around 3 o'clock in the morning, Riley Gaul drove to the Sturkey Hills neighborhood. He had already been there before, as the man in black, allegedly casing the house. He knew the layout. He knew which room was Emma's. He'd been inside that house. He knew where she slept. He stood outside the single-story home in the dark, in the middle of the night. He raised the stolen 9mm Glock, and he fired 2 shots through the bedroom wall. The first bullet struck Emma Walker behind her left ear as she slept. The second lodged in her pillow. She did not wake up. She did not suffer, at least not in those final moments. She was asleep, and then she was gone. Riley Gaul got back in his car. He drove back to Maryville College. His roommate, Andrew Walker Stanley, would later testify that Gaul returned to their dorm room at 4:45 in the morning. When Stanley asked where he'd been, Gaul just said he'd been out. He asked if Stanley could wake him up for his 8 o'clock class. A few hours later, Gaul sent Stanley a Snapchat telling him not to talk to police. The morning after he killed Emma Walker, Riley Gaul posted on social media a series of tweets, a lengthy Facebook post. He mourned her publicly. He wrote, "Rest easy now, sweetheart. I love you forever and always." He was posting about grief while standing in the wreckage of what he had done. Meanwhile, at the Walker home, Jill Walker was on the phone with 911, trying to understand what had happened to her daughter, and the Knox County Sheriff's Office was already starting to put the pieces together. Detective Alan Merritt arrived at the Walker home that Monday morning and started looking. He walked the outside of the house. He found the first bullet hole, shoulder height on the exterior wall. Small, just about the size of a ballpoint pen. He found the 2 shell casings in the yard. He walked around to the other side of the house and found a second bullet hole at the same approximate height. To Detective Merritt, that symmetry was telling. 2 shots from the same approximate elevation on opposite sides of the wall meant almost certainly the same shooter. Someone standing outside. Someone who knew what they were shooting at. The inside of Emma's room told the rest of the story. 1 bullet behind her ear. 1 in her pillow. A small amount of blood. She had been asleep. She hadn't moved. She hadn't had the chance to. Detective Merritt and the Major Crimes Division began interviewing friends and family, and almost immediately, one name kept surfacing. Riley Gaul. When detectives brought Gaul in for questioning, his answers were vague. He denied having any knowledge of his grandfather's gun. He denied showing it to anyone, but he had shown it to someone. His friend Alex McCarty had seen it, and McCarty told Detective Merritt about it. After that interview, Gaul texted McCarty and asked why he'd told police about the gun. McCarty drove over to Gaul's house. He looked his friend in the eye and asked him straight out what had happened to the gun. Gaul said he'd returned it to his grandfather. He was lying. He had already thrown it away. He had asked a friend to help him dispose of it, to throw it into the Tennessee River. By this point, Gaul's friends were putting everything together, and they made a decision that would prove decisive. They contacted law enforcement, and they agreed to help set a trap. This is the part of the story that doesn't follow the normal script. Usually in cases like this, you have investigators on one side and a suspect on the other. What happened in the Emma Walker case was something different. The suspect's own friends decided they couldn't stay quiet. Isaac Ewers, Alex McCarty, Noah Walton. These were Riley Gaul's close friends, his best friend since 2nd grade among them. They had been there the night of the fake kidnapping. They had watched the behavior, and now Emma was dead, and they knew things. Working with law enforcement, 2 of Gaul's friends agreed to wear a wire and a body camera and get Riley talking. They brought him to the River Bluff Wildlife Area, an overlook of the Tennessee River, the day after the shooting, November 22, 2016, and they got him on tape. The footage that was captured in those moments, Gaul talking about Emma's death, talking about the evidence, talking about the gun, would become some of the most critical evidence in the case against him. His own words, captured by his own friends, on a device he didn't know was there. He was arrested at that overlook by Knox County Sheriff's Office. He was 18 years old. He had killed a 16-year-old girl in her sleep because she had tried to move on with her life. In January 2017, Riley Gaul was indicted on multiple charges: first-degree murder, stalking, reckless endangerment, theft of the firearm, tampering with evidence, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. He sat in jail and waited for trial. The trial of Riley Gaul began on April 30th, 2018, a year and a half after Emma Walker's death, in Knox County Criminal Court. What followed was 8 days of testimony from more than 30 witnesses. Jill and Mark Walker took the stand. Emma's friends took the stand. 2 neighbors. The 911 operator who had taken Jill's call that morning. Detective Alan Merritt walked the jury through the crime scene. Forensic technicians from both the Knox County Sheriff's Office and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation testified about the physical evidence. Kendall Stoner of the TBI testified about DNA analysis. DNA taken from a shoe and a sweatshirt recovered from Gaul's vehicle, a Hyundai Tucson, matched Riley Gaul's profile. The vehicle also contained black clothing, consistent with what witnesses described the mysterious figure wearing when he appeared at Emma's door 2 days before her death. The jury heard about the 52 calls in 26 minutes. They heard about Gaul's return to the dorm at 4:45 a.m. They heard about the Snapchat he sent telling his roommate not to talk to police. Sent on the same morning, Emma's body was found. They saw the body camera footage captured by Gaul's friends at the Overlook. They heard his own voice. Phone records were introduced showing a Call of Duty-related discussion. Detectives had noted Gaul played the video game, which involves shooting through walls, a mechanic the game calls wall banging. Prosecutors raised this as context for how Gaul may have understood that firing through a wall at a specific location could be lethal. The defense objected to this line of evidence, but the court allowed it. Emma's friends testified about the final days. They testified about the fake kidnapping on November 18th. They testified about the texts Emma sent about the man in black at her door on the 19th. Several of them said Emma had told them she was scared. One text she sent describing the figure in black at her doorstep was among the last communications she ever sent. She had told her friends she thought she was going to die. The defense attorney, Wesley Stone, did not deny that Riley Gaul had fired the shots. He couldn't deny it. The evidence was too overwhelming. Instead, he argued that Gaul had never intended to kill Emma, that he had fired through the wall to scare her, to get her attention, not to end her life. Stone argued his client was a desperate, lovesick young man who made a catastrophic decision, not a cold-blooded killer. He never intended to cause her harm, Stone would later say, never intended to cause her death. The prosecution called him something different, cold-hearted, calculated. A man who stole a gun, cased a house, showed up in the dark, dressed head to toe in black, and fired twice at a sleeping girl. The jury deliberated, and on May 8, 2018, they came back. Guilty. First-degree murder, stalking, reckless endangerment, theft, tampering with evidence, possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. Riley Gaul was convicted on all counts. At the sentencing hearing, Riley Gaul did something he had not done during the entire trial. He spoke. "I'm sorry I took Emma away from you," he said to Jill and Mark Walker. "I'm sorry that I robbed you of the experience of watching your daughter grow up. What I can do is tell the truth about that night. I wanted to scare her. I never meant to take Emma's life. I am sorry." He apologized, and in the same breath, he held to the position that it was an accident. Jill Walker responded in a way that said everything that needed to be said. He had been in their house. He knew where Emma slept. He drove there in the middle of the night, dressed in dark clothing. He fired twice into a sleeping girl's bedroom. And then he sent a message to his roommate telling him not to talk to police before Emma's family even knew she was gone. He knew what he was doing and meant to do it. Riley Gaul was sentenced to 51 years in prison. He would be eligible for release, if he ever is, as an old man. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in real investigations, shocking cases, and justice served, please subscribe, leave a comment, and join us as we explore more true crime stories.